Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome all of you all for our Gita classes. We are on chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled as Action and Krishna Consciousness. And we started the discussion last time by talking about the first word in the acronym, that is stay in this world. And last time, if you remember, we discussed on how one does work in devotion. And I spoke about how first it begins by thinking that nothing belongs to me, nothing is mine. Nothing is mine because I'm not made anything. And the third thing is, if I have not made it, who has made it? We said everything belongs to God. And the fourth thing is, things in this world are under my care. And therefore anything that is under my care, which includes my family, wealth, time, energy, whatever is there, I need to use it in Krishna's service. And therefore such a person who does all this is considered to be working in devotion. Now Krishna speaks a very interesting analogy how a human being should stay in this world but not be a part of this world. To understand that, he uses 3 words. Living in this world is a very complicated affair. And therefore, when somebody is living in this world, there is a lot of confusion. And life is so complicated in a city like Bombay. The people have to do multiple things at one time. Like this fellow is driving his car, talking on a phone, shaving himself, and his mind is thinking about something else only, So this is the nature of people in this world. Completely complicated, completely trying to achieve multiple things at the same time, and end up practically living confused. Everybody in this world wants to become dear to all. What is the meaning of becoming dear to all? That means everyone in this world, somehow or the other, wants to feel appreciated, wants to feel connected, wants to feel inspired, and wants to inspire others. So how do you achieve that? Krishna uses 3 words, these 3 words in Sanskrit. They tell us how one can become dear to everybody. Naturally, everybody is interested in knowing how to become dear. Krishna uses 3 words: Visuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya. So anybody who lives life based on these 3 words Such a person is living in Bombay but is not a part of Bombay. That means a person is living in this world but is not a part of this world. The question is, what are these three words actually meaning and implying in our life? Visuddhatma, Vijitatma, Jitendriya. So now if I leave it to y'all figure out, go and study Bhagavad Gita and figure out what these three words mean. This is the essence of how a lot of complications in life can be solved if you learn these three words properly. Should I explain or should I leave it to y'all for homework? So, the first word, Vishuddhatma. The word Atma in Sanskrit refers to many things. And in different contexts, in different places, the same word means multiple things, means different things. Here, the word Vishuddhatma, in this place, Atma refers to the intelligence. And the word Vishuddhatma means purified and sharpened intelligence. That means the first way in which we can become dear to everybody, we can live in this world but not be a part of this world, is if we can become Visuddhatma, which means if we can live a life in such a way that we have purified and sharp intelligence. One time there was a woodcutter who was cutting wood. He was cutting a tree and he had a saw, and no matter how much ever he was cutting the tree, practically he was not even able to cut one small bark of the tree, literally. And then some wise man came and told him, "You fool, you have not sharpened the axe. You spend some time sharpening it and then you cut, it will immediately cut." Similarly, if we can sharpen our intelligence, then a lot of complications in life will be solved. What is the meaning of sharpening the intelligence? Is there some tool that can actually help us sharpen the intelligence? Just like if you want to sharpen a knife, you use a stone or use some kind of a grinder that really causes that friction so that the knife becomes sharper. Similarly, what is the way in which we sharpen our intelligence? The first way or the first method that Krishna recommends is Shastra. When we study the scriptures, we are actually sharpening our intelligence. And when we sharpen our intelligence, then the intelligence becomes purified, which means that it can really function to its best capacity. What is the property or what is the result of a sharp intelligence? The result of the sharp intelligence is that it develops the power of discrimination. What is right and what is wrong? Most times in our life, we are confused what we are supposed to do. I would say 70% of our life goes in confusion. What am I supposed to do? If our intelligence is sharp, then it is very easy to actually deal with so many confusions in our life. And therefore, the first qualification that Krishna speaks about is Vishuddhatma. That means one who has a purified intelligence by studying the Shastra, studying the scriptures thoroughly. The second qualification that Krishna speaks about is Vijitatma. Here the word Atma refers to the mind. It doesn't refer to intelligence here, it refers to the mind. Vijitatma means self-controlled and purified mind. Vishuddhatma meant purified and sharpened intelligence. And Vijitatma means self-controlled, purified mind. Now, to deal with the mind itself is a very complex affair. The mind is a completely mad personality, totally unreliable and completely distracted. And therefore, what is the nature of the mind? The nature of the mind is that it wants to disconnect from Krishna and it wants to deal with unlimited other things except Krishna. I mean, you can try it yourself. When you come in a lecture and hear that we're supposed to focus on Krishna, it's very easy. But when you actually try to focus on Krishna, it is very difficult. And especially if you try to focus 24 hours on Krishna, it is impossible. We are soon going to have once in a year we have a festival which is known as Pandav Nirjal Ekadasi. One of the most complicated Vaishnava festivals. And people dread it. They prepare mentally for a year to be able to handle this festival. Let me give you what the festival is about. It's about fasting all day and all night. Nirjal Ekadasi means you don't drink water also, you don't eat anything for 24 hours. So can you imagine what's going on in the mind? So the purpose of such a festival is so that we can focus on Krishna all day long. But unfortunately, most people end up focusing on the belly all day long. And the focus is on next day morning Nimbu Pani, when we can break the fast. So generally, when the mind is told to focus on Krishna, the mind rebels like anything. It can focus on anything else except Krishna. And therefore, somebody who is a Vijitatma is somebody who knows the art of somehow or the other focusing on Krishna and not allowing the mind to deviate, to go here and there. Just like when a doctor is dealing with a very complicated disease or is going into an environment which is very highly plagued by some infections, the doctor disinfects himself, inoculates himself so that he can go and deal with and help people. And therefore, unless one actually inoculates oneself, actually purifies oneself, makes oneself very strong, till that person's mind is very stable, he cannot really help others. And therefore, a Vijitatma is somebody who controls the mind with the help of the process which is known as sadhana, or the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Many times people consider the process of chanting to be something ordinary, something mechanically done. The process of chanting is actually one way of connecting with Krishna, one way of experiencing Krishna's presence in our lives. Krishna in the Gita, he speaks about how he reciprocates with us in the exact same way in which we reciprocate with him. That means the way we approach God, that is the way in which he approaches us. If we have a very casual and a very relaxed approach towards God, God exactly approaches us in the same casual and relaxed way. If we have an intensified approach towards God, Krishna intensely approaches us in the exact same way. Which means that how responsible Krishna is to deal with us, to reciprocate with us, it actually lies on us only. The responsibility lies on us. It doesn't lie on Krishna. That means if we are really intensely approaching Krishna through the process of sadhana bhakti, through the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord, to that extent Krishna takes us seriously. And therefore, Vijitatma is somebody who, like a doctor, inoculates himself first before going out. The material world, the world outside, is a very complicated world. It's a very diseased world. What disease do people have outside? They have the mental disease. So many mental diseases, I'm not exactly talking about people who are consulting psychologists. It's not that only people who consult psychology have mental disease. In today's world, everybody has mental disease. Literally everybody is mad. Why they are mad? Because what is madness? Madness is misidentifying oneself to be somebody else. Like I often give this example of Jawaharlal Nehru. When he was the Prime Minister of India, he went to one mental asylum, and one mad fellow was there, and he tapped him. He said, "Who are you?" This fellow said, "I am the Prime Minister of India." That man said, "Welcome to the mental asylum." When I said that, they put me over here. So essentially, who is a mad person? Who is a crazy person? Somebody who identifies himself to be somebody else. That person is mad. So here in the material world, everybody is mad because they identify themselves as a body, whereas they are not the body, they are spirit soul. And therefore, to be able to control the mind, we need the process of sadhana bhakti. And therefore, every day in the morning, before we step out of our homes, we have to inoculate ourselves through the process of sadhana bhakti, through the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord, so that when we step out, We are not affected by the mad environment that is outside. Otherwise, the mad environment outside is going to definitely affect us. And when we come back to home, we'll act mad only. We'll act weird. So, the process of sadhana bhakti is a process of practice. You cannot be perfect in sadhana, in the process of chanting, unless you actually practice. Many people take chanting to be very casual, because anybody can do. What is the big deal? You try and see. It's a 100% knockout formula. That means if anybody feels that he can easily do it, chant for an hour or so, then you will see how your mind behaves. That's when you realize that you have absolutely no control over your mind at all. It's just not ready to focus. One time, there was a very famous musician called Beethoven. He was called by the Queen to perform. And when this man was called to perform, he gave a master performance, really great. And the Queen said, "You are a genius." This man, very practically, he said that this genius has practiced for 8 hours for 40 years. That means what it takes to be a genius, practice. There was, this famous sportsman called Tiger Woods. At one point, he was the highest paid man in the world. And he was, he used to wear a cap with a Nike tick on it. And to wear that cap, this fellow would get $54,000 a day. He had to just wear the cap, And somebody asked him, "What is the secret of your success?" He only said one word: practice. That's it. So, who is a Vijita Atma? Vijita Atma is somebody who is willing to invest time in practicing the process of chanting, practicing the process of sadhana bhakti. So, Vijita Atma is somebody who develops control of the mind, self-control by sadhana. Vishuddhatma is somebody who purifies his intelligence, sharpens his intelligence by studying the Shastra. Vijidhatma is somebody who purifies his mind and controls his mind by the process of sadhana. And the third is called as Jitendriyaha. The word Indriyaha means senses. Jitendriyaha means the one who conquers his senses, the one who wins over his senses, controls his senses. So, control of mind can only come when there is control of senses. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna makes a very interesting point. He tells Uddhava this. He gives an example to Uddhava. He says, we should deal with our senses the way we deal with horses. How is a horse taken care of? So when you are riding a horse, you don't pull the reins too tightly. But at the same time, you don't allow the reins to completely stay loose also. So you hold the reins in such a way that the horse goes in the right direction. It moves ahead in the right direction. That means that one has to learn how to allow one's senses to go in the right direction towards the process of good engagement in spiritual life. That means it's not that the senses should not be utilized at all. There are many people who say the only way to control the senses is keep them shut. Don't use them at all. And there is another way. The other way is that engage the senses so much that at one point they get fed up. The example is given that when there is fire, and you put ghee in the fire increases. But if you put so much ghee in it, the fire will go off at one point. So that's the example that people give. Engage senses so much in sense gratification that you'll get fed up. That also doesn't work. Because the fire just keeps increasing more and more and more. And therefore, the way in which we deal with our senses is give them good Krishna conscious engagement. And therefore, the way to help our senses, control our senses is through the process of seva, service. That means anyone who gives some time to engage in some practical service for Krishna, that is the antidote for sense gratification. That is the antidote for the senses wandering around. So that means a Jitendriya is not somebody who artificially practices the process of self-control, sense control. But he engages the senses in Krishna's service in such a way that the senses get purified. That means when we want to engage our eyes, it's not that we don't engage we just don't see anything beautiful. Eyes hanker for seeing something beautiful. But what is worth seeing? We see the beautiful darshans of the deities first thing in the morning, instead of watching the hoardings of some actors or actresses, or watching some, stupid screensavers which have no relevance to our lives, We learn to watch or have darshan of the beautiful deities of the Lord. Last 21 days from, last Saturday actually. Last 21 days we had darshan of Gopalji and Radha Gopijan Vallabh. I mean, if you see the number of hours our pujaris worked, devotees worked, almost for each darshan, they were working for almost 10 hours, 12 hours to make one darshan possible. So, every darshan was taking them 10 hours, 12 hours of hard work. Why? What do they get by, why do they make these darshans so complicated, so much hard work? The reason is very simple. So that our eyes get something beautiful to see. The ears need something, interesting to hear. We come for classes, we hear kirtans. We have some of the most melodious and amazing kirtans in the world, practically in the Hare Krishna movement. Keeping the senses engaged. And what to speak of prasad, You can eat unlimited amount of prasad. There is no restriction as long as it is prasad. Instead of just eating anything, Baskin Robbins and this and that, there's nothing to give and take with, it maybe titillate your tongue, but it doesn't really give you a benefit, When we eat prasad, we actually advance by eating prasad. Srila Prabhupada would say that we eat our way back to Godhead. We can eat our way back to Godhead, In the initial days of the Hare Krishna movement, when, all these young boys and girls were joining, they had no real taste for Krishna consciousness as yet. So Prabhupada had a formula how to inspire them in their spiritual lives. Naturally, he would cook for them. He himself cooked for everyone. But he would keep a jar of gulab jamun. He would call these as ISKCON bullets. He would keep them at the gate, at the door. And anybody could eat any amount of gulab jamuns. And nobody would ask any questions. Free for all. There was one devotee who was actually thinking of leaving the Hare Krishna movement because he was like, getting fed up. His senses were going crazy, and he wanted to just run away. So he was just going out of the temple. Suddenly he saw that jar of gulab jamuns. So he said, "Anyway, I'm going. Let me eat one and go. I may not never come back again." So he ate one. He was really inspired. He said, "If I'm not going to come back, might as well eat few more." He ate 5-6 gulab jamuns. And he said, "If I'm going to get this, why should I leave?" And he just stayed back. Prabhupada tricked him. So that means it's not that we don't engage our senses, but we engage them in the right way, in the Krishna conscious way. And therefore, one of the ways in which we recommend to engage the senses is by seva, by service. When we actually take up service, when we actually take up voluntary service for the sake of Krishna, that service actually is the antidote for senses from wandering away. So, a person who is a Vishuddhatma is somebody who purifies his intelligence, sharpens his intelligence by studying the Shastra. The person who is Vijitatma is somebody who controls the mind, purifies the mind through the process of sadhana, through the process of chanting. And Jitendriya is somebody who controls the senses, engages senses in the process of seva, service, so that the senses are not let loose, but rather channelized and engaged in Krishna's service. And such a person who is a Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma and Jitendriya, he is dear to everybody. And therefore, such a person is called a Nitya Sannyasi. That means many people in this world run away from this world, stay aloof from the world because they are either chastised or they are frustrated with relationships. So they decide they will become, they stay away from everybody, just want to stay alone. And there are many other people who decide to stay aloof based on knowledge. Such a person who decides to stay aloof is somebody who based on knowledge, is somebody who externally is very active, but internally is aloof. Externally he seems to be doing everything that everybody else is doing, but internally he is not affected by it. He is not so much attached to it. And such a person, Krishna says, behaves like a lotus leaf. Now, the lotus leaf is something that stays on the water, on the surface of the water, but it is completely unaffected by the water. The leaf has a waxy coating on it. And even if there is dirt put on the leaf, there is water put on the leaf, no matter what is put on the leaf, nothing stays on the leaf. It just slides off, it just falls off. And not just slides off and falls off, it doesn't even leave a mark on the leaf. It just completely washes off from the leaf. And therefore, such a person is known as a Nitya Sannyasi. That means this person lives in this world but is unaffected by this world. That means this person works in this world, but he works in devotion. And such a person, though he seems to be externally active in this world, he is actually internally completely detached. And such a person who is working in devotion is considered to be better than somebody who is renounced in knowledge. So Krishna, he in this concept, he asks us to become sannyasis. Now, the moment we talk about such a concept, it seems to be a very fearful concept. It's not about quitting the family. It's not about running away from the family. But it's about the mood, the consciousness in which we engage in such a activity. So the next part of the discussion is a very interesting part, which is known as the three doers. So Krishna, he is bringing up a very pertinent and a very important discussion at this point. Who really does everything in this world? Most people in this world consider that they are the ones who are the cause of doing. I am the doer. In the Gita, there's this very interesting verse, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sharvasa ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The word kartaham, karta means doer, aham means I am the doer. So people in this world often think that they are the doers. Like a father may think that I am maintaining the family. The mother may think the father just says it, but actually I am only maintaining the family. The children feel neither father nor mother are maintaining, because of me only family is there. So everybody feels they are the maintainer, they are the doers of everything. And this mind, the mood of being a doer can affect at any point. If you're working in a temple, you're doing service in the temple. Even while you're doing service in the temple, we can definitely be in the mood of being a doer. Without me, nothing can happen. Like there was one fellow who was walking by a well in the night. When he just glanced into the well, he saw the moon inside the well. So he started shouting. He said, the moon has fallen into the well. Big problem. So then he went and brought a big rope, because he wanted to pull the moon out of the well. And he threw the rope inside the well. Somehow the rope got stuck on a stone in the wall of the well. This fellow tried to pull very hard, but he was not able to only. And he put full energy, every ounce of energy he put. And somehow the other, the rope slipped off. And he went and fell at the back, on his back. And suddenly he saw up, he saw the moon on top. He said, wow, I did it. Finally I managed to save the moon, So a person who is materialistic, he wants to take credit for anything he does, and even for those things he doesn't do. So the natural thing in the material world is to show that I am the doer. One man, he went to meet his friend, and the friend was supposed to go out to meet many other people. So he told, you also come along with me. This fellow said, I'm sorry, I can't come because I don't have any good, my shirt was not good also. This man said, don't worry, you wear my shirt, you can come with me. So this fellow wore his shirt and they went along. They went to next friend's house and he was introducing, this is my friend and he is wearing my shirt. This fellow said, why do you have to say it is my shirt? You can just introduce me. Don't talk about the shirt. So he said, okay, no problem. They went to the next house and he said, this is my friend and he's not wearing my shirt. He said, don't say I'm wearing and don't say I'm not wearing. What nonsense is this? They went to the third house. This is my friend and we're not talking about the shirt. So people in this world, somehow or the other, they want to show that I am the doer. And naturally, anybody who thinks I am the doer is known, this concept is known as ahankar, which is the concept of the false ego. The false ego screaming for attention. So Krishna helps us understand how to deal with this mindset of being a doer through a very interesting and a very graphic type of example. The example that he gives is that he says a Nitya Sannyasi is somebody who is living in a city of 9 gates. So the 9 gates that we have are the ears, the eyes, the mouth, the nostrils, the reproductive system, the evacuation system. And inside that city, the city with 9 gates, the Atma, the living entity, lives. So Krishna explains this concept known as Navadvara Pur. Pur means city and Dwara means gates and Nava means 9. Navadvara Pur means, so he says the living entity is somebody who is living in a Navadvara Pur and he calls us as Navadvara Pur Dehi. Dehi means the person who is living in the city of 9 gates. So the Atma is living in such a city, but can you imagine he is living in the city and paying no taxes? When we stay in a city, we naturally have to pay a lot of taxes. While living in the city, the soul does not go out of the city. The soul stays within the body, but the attention goes out. Our focus goes out. Like for example, when we're chanting Hare Krishna or when you're hearing a class and suddenly towards 8:50, 8:55 prasadam comes in. And by mistake, if they have not closed the lids, that's why you make it compulsory, they close the lid and get it in, Otherwise 5 minutes nobody can focus only. Mind is gone there, So, therefore, the Ashtanga yogis do something which is known as Pratyahar. Pratyahar means shutter down. They close the shutter. The 9 gates, the city of 9 gates, the gates are all the time open. And therefore, a Ashtanga yogi closes the shutter down. Physically, the Atma cannot go out of the city. But the attention, the mind, the focus tends to wander out all the time. And therefore, physically we may be in one place, but mentally we may be everywhere else. So, Krishna uses this example of that I live in the city of 9 gates to show us this whole concept of who is a doer. The first understanding of the city is that I am not the city. That is the first thing that Krishna expects us to understand. If I am living in the city, that means I am not the city. That means I am living in this body, I am not this body. If I live in Bombay, we don't say I am Bombay. We say Amchi Mumbai. We never say I am Bombay. When Russians went to the moon, the first time they went to the space and from the space they were looking on the earth, the interesting thing was they were trying to find Moscow. Prabhupada says they went up so high and they're looking for something on the ground. The attachment is so strong, somehow or the other, we want to stay connected to what we are most attached to. You go abroad to any country in the world, you'll always find associations of Tamilians, Tamil Sangam, you'll find Mallu association, you'll find Maharashtrian association. These associations are much stronger outside than when they're actually inside. The reason is because somehow or other we want to stay connected. There's a strong identification with the city. When in Pakistan, when the Pakistanis came to know that Pakistan lost a World Cup once, 70,000 sets of televisions were broken that day. Can you imagine? 70,000 sets, so much identification and attachment to the city. So the whole world thinks we are the city, we are the apartment. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he always spoke about this concept of how I am not the body, I am spirit soul. One time Srila Prabhupada was speaking on a Radhashtami day. Radhashtami, the appearance day of Radharani. And the whole lecture he spoke about how I am not the body, I am spirit soul. So people were confused. He didn't speak anything about Radha and Krishna. So they went and asked Prabhupada, why don't you speak something about Radha and Krishna? Today Radhashtami. Prabhupada said, if you have not understood that you are not the body and you are the spirit soul, you can't understand anything further. First understand this. And he continued speaking on that I am the spirit soul and not the body. So that means unless we are really understanding that I am not the city, I am living in the city, till then we cannot make any progress spiritually. So when a Nitya Sannyasi, when he understands that I am living in a city of 9 gates, the first thing he understands is I am not the city. The second thing he understands is that I am not the city and I am not the proprietor of the city also. I don't own the city. We are living on a leave and license agreement. That means there is a notice, there is a agreement or a contract. That means I can live up to 11 months, I can live up to 2 years, whatever. There is always a contract. One time, one man, he came to his house from work. And when he entered his house, on the door, there was a notice stuck. Government of India. The notice said, you have to vacate your house by tomorrow morning. Now this guy was in great anxiety. Can you imagine, there's a Government of India notice on your door saying that you have to vacate by tomorrow morning. You can't think. So his head started paining like anything. He was already in anxiety from his office. Then he came and he saw the notice. He went into his house and he told his wife, make tea for me. The wife, she went to the kitchen to try to make tea, and she realized that there is no tea powder. She told her husband, sorry, there is no tea powder. Now this fellow has 2 problems. One is there is a notice on the door, and second, there is no tea powder. So his head started paining even more. So then he said, let me go out and buy tea powder. And that time he realized that his favorite television program is just going to start. Now he has 3 problems. Notice on the door means tea powder is over, and if he goes to get tea powder, television program will go. Now he was catching his head and he sat down thinking, what should I do first? Many times in life, this is the situation of all of us. The most important problem he has is the notice there on the door. He conveniently forgets the notice on the door and focuses on tea powder missing and television channel, program going away. Most people don't know what to prioritize in life. And therefore, the first thing that we know, when we know that we are not the city, and when we know that we are not the proprietor of the city, we should also know that there is an eviction notice anytime given to you. That means anytime you will be told to vacate from the city. What are you doing about that notice? Unfortunately, nobody talks about that notice at all. Nobody wants to focus on the notice at all because they are too busy focusing on the tea powder and the television, thing missing. That's the nature of the people in this world. Too busy focusing on all the unnecessary necessities of life. Our birthdays, while we're living in the city, are contract days. Everyone wants to extend the contract, But the problem is that the contract is already signed. Now you cannot make any amendments to the contract. The contract will be implied or implemented as it is. So when we live in the city, And somehow or other we start developing great attachment to the city. Death is a very painful experience because it takes you away from everything that you're attached to. And suddenly, forcibly, you're thrown away from your city. You think that you're the city. You think that you're the proprietor of the city. And then, suddenly one day, you're thrown out. Even though you don't want to be thrown out. One time, one man, he came to know he was going to die. And naturally, he knew that the Yamadutas will come and catch him and take him away. So he decided to prepare himself so that the Yamadutas don't take him. So what he did was, he covered himself from top to bottom in stool. He said, Yamadutas won't touch me if I'm so dirty, After that also they took him away. No matter how much you try to secure yourself, it's not possible. You will surely get kicked out at some point of time or the other. Attachment to the family, attachment to resources, attachment to things around us, attachment to the city itself is so complicated that it binds us very strongly. One time there was a guru who had many disciples. And one of his disciples was very much attached to his family. And he just didn't want to let go. So the guru, he told him, let me explain how you can get detached from your family. He said, no problem, show me how to do it. So he said, go home and suddenly fall down as if you're dead. And then I'll come and I'll take care. You just experience it. So he went and he fell, he collapsed, died. So everybody was worried, Suddenly he came and he died. So that time only Guru came. They said, our dear family member is dead. So Guru said, don't worry, I will take care of him. But if all of you are so much inspired that you love him, you have so much affection for him, then I have a lot of siddhis. I can do one thing for you. One of you all give up your life for him and he will be alive. So now everybody started thinking, who will do that? So he asked the father, you have so much attachment to your son, you have lived enough, why don't you give up yourself, your body, so that he can live now? The father said, no, I want to play with my grandchildren. And just now I have grandchildren, so I'll have to take care of them. Sorry. Then he said, at least the mother should give up, The mother said, no, I am, Ardhangini, I am supposed to take care of my husband. If I am dead, who will take care of my husband? I can't die. He went to the wife and he said, come on, at least you sacrifice yourself for your husband. She said, no, I am only married for 1 year. I can get married to somebody else. This fellow got up and ran away from the home. He said he realized nobody has any attachment to me. I am only having unnecessary attachment here and there. The nature of people in this world is that you develop attachment. Think first that you are the city, and then you start developing attachment that I am the proprietor of this, I am the owner of the city. There's one lady, this lady's name is Angeles Duran from Spain. This lady, she made a very interesting claim. She claimed that she owned the sun. She actually filed, a claim in the courts that she owns the sun. Now, according to the laws of the legal system, nobody can claim anything on the earth. There are many things on earth with all government property or they are claimed property. But she said nobody talked anything about the other parts of the solar system. So I am claiming the sun. The courts actually gave her permission, to claim the sun. Now she's thinking going one step further, that whoever uses solar power, they have to pay me tax because I own the sun. So can you imagine what complicated people they are? First of all, they are not the city. They think they are the city. And then they start imagining that I am the proprietor of the city also. Here, she's claiming other people's city also to be hers. The third thing is, if I'm not the proprietor of the city, I am also not the controller of the city. That means that if whatever is done within the city, either good or bad, is not done by us. So someone may think that we can do all the bad now because I am not the controller. I am not doing anything in the city. That means I am not doing good also. I am not doing bad also. Criminals love such philosophy. So this is the philosophy we are waiting for. If Krishna says in the Gita that nobody is the doer. I am not the doer of anything. I am not the controller of the city. Whatever I am doing within the city is not done by me. So, wow, that's it. If I do something wrong also, it's not me. There was one serial killer called Raman Raghav. This was his philosophy. He would kill people and he would say, I didn't kill. Paramatma inside me inspired me to kill. And he killed so many people, literally. So such a verse can be misused by people. And therefore, Krishna in this verse, he has emphasized multiple times that we are not the controller. So now the question is, if I am not the controller, if I am not the doer, who is the doer? Who does, actions? So I am saying that we're living in a city of 9 gates. The moment we are saying that we are living in the city, that means I am not the city. And if I say I am not the city, that means it's not that I am not the city, I am also not the proprietor of the city. I don't own the city. And I'm not just the proprietor of the city, I'm not even the controller of the city. So question now is, who really does everything? If I am not doing it, who does it? There are many things that are considered to be doers. The first doer is considered to be the 3 modes. The 3 modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. It is said that the modes make us do things. When goodness is prevalent, the vibration in us gets up. We like to do good things, sattva good things. When the passion in us wakes up, then Ravan gets up. And the nature of Ravan is that he has Mandodari but he still wants Sita. The nature of passion is that you are not satisfied with what you have. You want what others have. And when the mode of ignorance gets up, it means Kumbhakarna gets up. It takes the name of depression, it takes the name of laziness, it takes the name of doing nothing. So the modes make us act in different ways. And people who do things can blame the modes naturally. That means if I get drunk, we can say I didn't get drunk, the mode of passion made me drink. Or somebody, you call him to a temple and he doesn't come to the temple. He says, the mode of goodness didn't inspire me enough to come today. So essentially, these 3 modes seem to be making us do things. The person in the mode of goodness, he can choose whether to drink or not to drink. The person in the mode of ignorance, he has no choice. The person in the mode of passion, he can choose between rum or whiskey. Some choice is there, but he's still forced. So the problem is that though the 3 modes seem to be pushing us to do things, the 3 modes by themselves are dead matter. They are not alive. They are not living entities. They are dead matter. So how can dead matter, material things, overpower the soul, make the soul do things? Therefore, the 3 modes by themselves cannot be the doers. The second understanding is that the 3 modes, they cover what is known as the inner voice. Inner voice is the voice of the Paramatma. So, the second doer seems to be the Paramatma. That means, if the modes are not the doers, because they are dead matter, then who is the doer? Maybe God within us is making us, pushing us to do things. But the fact is that the Paramatma who is within us is completely detached. He does not gain anything if we worship him, and he does not gain anything if we don't worship him. When Krishna attacked Mathura, he killed Kamsa. After he killed Kamsa, Krishna didn't sit on the throne of Kamsa. He made Ugrasen sit on the throne of Kamsa. And much later, Krishna was instrumental in killing Jarasandha. He didn't sit on the throne of Jarasandha. He made the son of Jarasandha sit. He was instrumental in killing Duryodhana and the Kauravas. He didn't sit on the throne of Hastinapur. He made Yudhishthira sit. Similarly, the Paramatma is not somebody who's interested in gaining something from us if we worship him. He is completely detached. And therefore, if he does not want to get involved in our life, then who actually is the doer? Paramatma is actually in great control. it is said that not even a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. How do we understand that? If Paramatma is doing everything, then that means he's practically making us do things that even if we don't want it to do. Is he the doer? One time there was a man who did not believe in this fact that God does everything. That means not even a leaf of, not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. So he said, I will prove this statement is wrong. And he decided that I am going to fast today. Let me see how God will make me eat. If I don't want to eat, I am not going to eat. So this fellow, he decided to fast. Whole day he was fasting. He didn't eat anything. So when it became evening, he said, if I stay at home, I might get hungry and I might eat something. Let me go to the forest and sit on top of a tree. And there nobody can disturb me. Even if I want to eat, I can't eat. There is nothing available. So he went to the forest in the evening, sat on top of a tree. And he was very happy. Fasting is still going on. He was very happy that, God is not going to make me eat. So a little later, a group of people came and sat under that tree and started eating. This fellow from top is looking at all the food. He was getting tempted, But somehow he said, I'm not going to get down. I'm going to sit here only. Just when these people started eating, suddenly they heard a lot of commotion and a group of dacoits came. And these people ran away from there, saving their lives. They left the food there only. So the dacoits reached that place and they saw so much food on the ground. They said, wow, we're feeling hungry. God has arranged food for us. And they were actually going to start eating. And one of the dacoits said, what if this food is poisoned? And somebody is tricking us so that they can take away our loot, So they said, whoever has poisoned this food must be hanging around somewhere here, Let's find him. Then they searched and they found this fellow sitting on top of the tree. They pulled him down from top, He said, no, I can't eat. They said, you fool, you put poison in this food. They said, no, I don't know anything, I can't eat. The more he said, I can't eat, they were convinced that this fellow only poisoned, They opened his mouth and stuffed the food in to test if he's really poisoned or no. And this fellow was so disturbed. And then finally they realized it's not poison, they left him. But his fast was broken, in essence, Not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. He understood that in a very complicated way, So if we say that the Paramatma and the modes are responsible for what we are doing, it's like passing the blame to others. The three modes of material nature are the doer, Paramatma is the doer. This is like keeping the gun on somebody else's shoulder and shooting, The question now is that, who is the doer? So anybody can use this philosophy and claim that I am not doing, somebody else is responsible. Somebody who is a rapist, he can say that mode of passion made me do something, Somebody who is a killer can say that Paramatma made me do something. So who really is the doer? So whenever there is a love marriage, there are multiple parties involved in a love marriage. For example, the first girl has a desire, the boy has a desire, then the parents are involved. The parents sanction the girl's desire, they say, okay, get married. Then there's an event management company that felicitates, does all the arrangements for the marriage, and then the marriage happens. Or if you take the example of a surgery, so the patient comes with the desire that I want to undergo this surgery. I don't want to suffer, so I want to undergo this surgery. Then the surgeon is called for, he sanctions, and then once the surgeon sanctions, then there is the scalpel and so many instruments that are there which facilitate the surgery. So that means in every desire, or rather in every execution, there are three personalities who are involved when the execution happens. Or rather, these are called as the three doers. That means anything you do in life, anything that is done in life, there are always three doers. It is not one doer. You can't say Paramatma only did it. You can't say the living entity only did it. You can't say the modes of nature only did it. Actually, all the three are doers. The first doer is the living entity. Without the desire of the living entity, nothing can happen. So that means the desire to put ourselves in that particular situation, that is the basis of everything. Everything is based on desires. What is spiritual life? Spiritual life is about having the right kind of desires. Spiritual life in essence is desire management. If somebody wants to know a complicated term of what Krishna consciousness is, it is nothing but desire management. So we have the desire, the living entity has a desire. Then the Paramatma which is sitting next to us, next to the Atma, the super soul, smells our desire. That means the Paramatma immediately understands, even before our desire is expressed orally, the Paramatma who is sitting in the heart understands that this fellow has his desire now. So when somebody is a devotee of the Lord, somebody is a devotee of Krishna, for that person, Paramatma acts very differently. Krishna acts very differently. He handles the desires of a devotee very differently. And somebody who is not devotee, Paramatma acts very differently. So Krishna, the Paramatma, smells the desire of the living entity. Therefore, it is explained that every one of us is under 24 hours CC surveillance. CCTV is on. The Paramatma is a CCTV, constantly monitoring us. In different countries, there are speed cameras, and then there are CCTVs that detect movement and all that. But within us, there is a 24-hour surveillance of the Paramatma. And therefore, the third doer is, so the first doer is the living entity who has a desire. The second doer is the Paramatma who detects your desire. And as soon as the Paramatma detects your desire, he doesn't immediately sanction it. He first sees if you deserve what you desire. That means, in our younger days, we used to have the match the following. On this side there are names, and this side there are qualities. Match the following. You match this fellow's name with this quality, that name with that quality, like that. Similarly, the Paramatma matches the desire with the deserve. 2 columns. First, you have unlimited desires. Paramatma sees if actually the desire matches with your deserving column. That means, so the Paramatma does a search on your karma. There is a huge amount of data, in a computer. What do? You use a search facility. Search. So Paramatma has a search facility. According to your karma, do you deserve this? And the Paramatma does search, and if no files found, ho gaya. Paramatma doesn't sanction, And then if you found one file found, then maybe the Paramatma will sanction, like that. So Paramatma is like a search engine who searches your karma, and then based on your desire, if you deserve it, then the third thing is the Paramatma sanctions. One time, so therefore naturally the role of the Paramatma is a very complicated role. It's not easy to imitate. You can't understand how complicated it is. One man, he went to Dwarka, and he asked Dwarkadish, the form of Krishna over there, that I want to become Dwarkadish for 24 hours. Please allow me to become Dwarkadish. Dwarkadish found it very interesting proposal. He said, okay, fine, you become me for 24 hours. So the Lord said there's only one condition. The only condition is that no matter who comes, no matter what happens, you should not open your mouth only. Just keep quiet. Don't open your mouth. So he said, okay, no problem. I want to become Dwarkadish. So instantly this fellow became Dwarkadish, and Dwarkadish went away. So this fellow was standing over there, as Dwarkadish. So one very wealthy man, he came, and from his purse he took out 1 rupee and put it in the hundi. This fellow was thinking, what nonsense is this? His purse is so fat, he put 1 rupee in the hundi, He wanted to say something, but he realized that I can't say. He just kept quiet. And as this rich, wealthy man, he was leaving from the temple, his wallet fell on the ground. Instantly he wanted to say, "Arey, your wallet is..." He said, "I'm not supposed to say." He kept quiet. After some time, a poor man came to the temple, and he stood in front of Dwarkadish and he started praying, "My dear Lord, please help me serve you. I have no money at all. I have no wealth. I want to, serve you unlimitedly." And that moment only he found the wallet. He said, "Wow, Dwarkadish, you have fulfilled my desire. Now I'll serve you with this money, This man, he was thinking, oh my God, what's happening over here, He didn't say anything again. Then after a moment, a sailor came over there. And the sailor, before going, he was going on a long voyage on the ship. And before going, he wanted to take permission, blessings from Dwarkadish, and he was going. So just at that time, the wealthy man came with the police, saying that, my purse is lost over here, somebody has stolen. And the police found the sailor standing over there, they arrested him, Dwarkadish said, this is too much. In front of me only, three things have happened. How long am I supposed to keep quiet? He said, now I can't tolerate anymore, I have to speak. And he spoke up. He said, this fellow didn't take the money. And that poor man, he exposed the poor man. So then, the sailor was left, the poor man was arrested, and the rich man became happy, he got his money back. And the next day morning, Dwarkadish came and he said, how was the experience? He said, it was great. Nice to being, I can stay for more time also if you like, He said, no, time up, you get down now. And he said, did you open your mouth, in the 24 hours that I allowed you? He said, I solved a very complicated case. He said, what did you do? And then he told the whole thing, He said, you fool, you made the biggest blunder of your life. He said, the sailor, he was supposed to go on sail that day. His boat was supposed to drown. And I purposely arranged things in such a way that he would be in the prison so that he would not die and his wife and children would not miss him. But by allowing him to be free, he actually went on the boat and he actually drowned in the ocean. And this poor man, he was supposed to use the wealth properly in my service, because this rich man, he was a conjuice. He was not give anything to serve society and poor people. And he said, just by opening a mouth, you messed up the whole thing. So, being Paramatma, sanctioning is not an easy job. It's not just about desire. It's also about seeing whether you deserve according to your karma. And therefore, the Paramatma, he sometimes sanctions and sometimes doesn't sanction. When the Paramatma sanctions, then the three modes of material nature get empowered to carry out the sanction of the Lord. So he empowers the three modes to act. And therefore, there are three doers in any action. The first doer is the Atma, which desires. The second doer is the Paramatma that actually sanctions. The three modes are sanctioned by the Paramatma, and then the three modes facilitate and carry out the desire of the living entity. Like for example, the living entity, a small child may want to lift a weight. So that is a desire. He is the doer number one. The father sees that the child wants to lift a weight and he sanctions. He is the doer number two. And the father sends the child to a trainer. And the trainer actually helps the child lift the weight. That is the three modes, the third doer. So what is Krishna consciousness? Krishna consciousness begins with desire. So what is Krishna consciousness? It is desire management. That means we should have those desires that suit that are in such a way that actually help in satisfying the Lord. So that means Krishna consciousness is the process of having the right desires which satisfy the Lord, please the Lord. Krishna consciousness is a process of upgrading our desires. We don't need to change our hairstyle in Krishna consciousness. We need to change the quality of our desires. And therefore, we have desires. To facilitate these desires, this machine is given to us. The human body is like a machine. Krishna calls it yantra. And this machine is made up of the illusory body. It is the city of 9 gates. And the living entity is an alien in this environment. The living entity is completely unused to this environment. And naturally, when the living entity enters into the city, the living entity tries to enjoy through the city, through its body. And therefore, so Krishna is like a parent who always accompanies the child when he goes to a park. So when you go to a park, when children go to the park to play, the parents go along with it. But the parents don't play with the child. The parent is standing in one corner and the child is playing busy, enjoying itself. But the parent is constantly observing the child, constantly keeping an eye on the child. Similarly, every living entity has a Paramatma who is like an observer. The child, the living entity, comes to the material world, the city of 9 gates, to play, to have fun. And the Paramatma comes and only observes the child playing in the park. Just like every child in the park has one parent who is watching, similarly every living entity in this world has one Paramatma watching. And therefore, according to the living entity's desire, the Paramatma sees if he deserves, and if the Paramatma sees that the living entity deserves it, then the Paramatma, he sanctions and he inspires the three modes of material nature to actually carry out the desire. And therefore, if somebody has the right type of desire, and somehow or other the Paramatma sees within the heart of that person the exact spark, the right type of desire in being there, then the Paramatma facilitates that person to actually get fulfillment of the desire through the three modes of material nature. There's a very interesting story, a true story that happened many years back about one of our leaders, how he came into the process of Krishna consciousness. So this person, he was living in America with his wife, and they had a small dog. And naturally, in the Western world, whoever they are inspired by, whoever they have a lot of love and affection to, whoever is their source of figure, inspirational figure, they keep the name of the dog by that name. Very interesting phenomena. So these people were inspired by Jiddu Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti. So they kept the name of their dog as Krishna. Can you imagine? So, human psychology works differently. So they kept the name of the dog as Krishna. So one day, this dog ran away from the house. It has also its own desires. The dog ran away. So this person, he started running, searching for the dog. And he was shouting, Krishna, where are you? Krishna, where are you? Running all over the city, trying to find his dog. And as this person was chanting, running around, chanting Krishna's name, there was a group of Hare Krishna devotees doing kirtan. And they saw this fellow running, Krishna, where are you? Krishna, where are you? These devotees became very inspired. He said, my God, this seems to be like the Goswamis of Vrindavan, In Vrindavan, the 6 Goswamis would run around searching for Krishna, They said, in America, we are finding a Goswami. And they actually became so inspired, they stopped the kirtan, they caught him, and they started preaching to him. And that's how he got connected to the Hare Krishna movement, And now he's one of our leading sannyasis. His name is Kadam Kanana Maharaj, And the way he got connected is through his dog, Krishna, So which means that if there's a slight desire in the living entity, and Krishna, who is a Paramatma sitting within our heart, hears that desire, smells that desire, and if the living entity actually deserves fulfillment of the desire, he actually makes the modes of material nature facilitate. He made the dog run away, Why the dog ran away? Because the Krishna inspired him within his heart, run. So he ran, And somehow or the other, the exact same time he met the devotees, and that's how the connection happened. And therefore, Krishna ends this whole section by talking about how the concept of knowledge is like the noonday sun. And when knowledge rises, ignorance vanishes, darkness vanishes. And therefore, what is the darkness that vanishes when knowledge rises? The sun of knowledge rises. The concept of kartaham iti manyate. I am the doer. The understanding that I don't do. It's not that everything I only do on my own. I desire, Paramatma sanctions, and the three modes do. That is what the understanding of the knowledge leads us to. And that understanding leads us to taking shelter of the Lord even more intensely. And then slowly, as we take shelter of the Lord, at a certain point, a living entity becomes very, very matured and expert to such an extent that he doesn't have to really think so much. It becomes automatically present in him. Just like if a young person is driving a car to meet his girlfriend or to meet somebody whom he loves, naturally now his mind is constantly absorbed in that person only. He's not thinking about, I should press the accelerator properly, it's all happening automatically because he's an expert driver. So similarly, in the initial stage, there is a lot of complication and thought process. But once you reach a very advanced stage, then the living entity automatically knows to take shelter of the Lord, and he becomes detached. The example is given that in a coconut, when the coconut is the regular coconut, it is an unripe coconut, the shell of the coconut and the pulp of the coconut is stuck to it. But as the coconut becomes ripe, the shell becomes detached from the pulp, and it becomes copra. And the shell is outside, but the pulp is inside, not connected to the shell. Though it is inside the shell only, still it is detached from the shell. That's how the living entity becomes. Inside the city, but unaffected by the city. Inside the body, but disconnected from the body, and not really deeply involved in the body. And therefore, when such a person lives in this world, he understands that I am not the city, I am not the proprietor of the city, I am not the controller of the city also. I have desires. Paramatma sees if those desires, I deserve them, and then he sanctions the desires through the modes of material nature, and the modes of material nature facilitate my desires, and then something happens. So the living entity understands this based on knowledge, and such a person is not in ignorance thinking that I am the doer. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Just one announcement about the Jagrati festival which we are having in 2 weeks time. So the scaling up of the advertisements have started very intensely. So this week we are going to have many more hoardings coming up in different parts of Bombay. So we are requesting all of you all to talk about the Jagrati festival to as many people as possible and invite as many people as possible for the festival. And if you all like to, definitely you all should come, but you all should get as many people as possible for the festival. Those who like to have flyers and pamphlets, you're most welcome to take. We'll have them at the back. Pankaj, you have flyers back? I'll get the flyers. So you can take as many flyers as you'll want and invite as many people as you'll want. Thank you very much.